Okay, hi Ian. I have today with me Ian Winwood, who is a music journalist and author of this amazing book, Bodies, Life and Death in Music. For those that don't know, and I have explained this in my previous video, so you might be getting bored of hearing it now. But I've asked some writers that I know to come along and pick, not only talk about their own books, but also pick for you a selection of books from the genre that they are writing in, or the genre that they enjoy writing in, or enjoy reading. So to create a list that you will be able to either enter into the genre or find something you didn't know in that genre, or just the books that they wish that they could press into your hands. And so through the medium of me and my bookshop and newsletter and podcast and these kind of things, they're going to do that now. So hi Ian.
Hiya, Anna. Congratulations on the imminent opening of the bookshop, and hi to anyone who's listening.
Thank you
Everyone who's listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. So let's talk. I'm so excited to hear about your books because well, it's the reason I've asked people who are kind of experts in this area to do it is because you're the one who's reading this in this genre, so you know far better than I would. So I'm really lucky that I've called on people to help across various genres, and they've been willing to. So I'm super excited to hear about your books because they all sound amazing. But can we talk about this first?
Of course, yeah.
So this book, it was earlier this year it came out, wasn't it?
It came out in April, yeah, towards the end of
April.
April, yeah.
Yeah, and it got great reviews. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really strange. Looking back, um, I'm still not very good at explaining what the book is about, but ostensibly very shorthand. It's about how the music industry makes people ill.
Mm,
How, as a music journalist, the music industry gave me perfect cover to myself become very ill,
mm,
life-threateningly ill, actually, in the wake of a family tragedy
mm,
that paid quite well for me financially. I'll put it no stronger than that.
mm.
It's not quite as dour as I make it sound. That's the trouble I have, um, because I try to not crack. That's not quite right. It's not as depressing as I make it.
No, I
Although
mean, I
it's
think it's entertaining. I mean, it's entertaining, and that's what the review said. And in fact, you're dealing with these very heavy subject matters, but you do it in a as kind of light a way as possible, if it is possible to talk about these things.
yeah. I guess what I wanted to do, I wanted it to make it like the music itself. I guess at
Mm,
times very exciting and the kind of vertiginous highs and then the plummeting lows. So
mm,
and also very serious and tragic stories that I experienced myself,
yeah.
that happened to people I know, and to me, those belong to me, so I don't have to sort of treat them like like a crate load of Fabergé eggs that I'm trying to, walk across a rickety rope bridge. I
Mm,
can bring a reverence and stuff to it. Yeah, but it was really strange. It came out just over 6 months ago, and I suppose this time last year we're speaking on Halloween, and we and I didn't think really, Anna, when it was going to be published. I hadn't considered what might happen. I hadn't considered who might buy it, if anyone might buy it, whether it would get reviewed anywhere. And then I discovered that two places wanted to serialize it, a national newspaper and Rolling Stone. And then it got reviewed, and people were really nice about it. And so it's, I guess what I'm saying is, for a lot of writers, a lot of customers, the customers that come to your bookshop, and I hope there are many of them, will look at the books, and they can't, I don't think, reasonably be expected to to imagine the lives of the writers. But there was a report published a couple of months ago that said that 90% of books sell fewer than 2,000
Yeah.
copies, which is that's in no way, shape, or form a living wage for those
No,
writers.
no.
So I guess I expected it to disappear into this void of blackness, which
Right.
which pretty much the last book I wrote, which is about punk rock, that it happened to that. And if memory serves, I was completely fine with that. The achievement in and of itself was enough for me.
Yeah.
But I've had a little taste of the nectar
Right. Yeah.
of a little bit of success, and now that's my latest addiction. Checking the Amazon numbers, imagining that I am quote unquote almost famous. Yeah, it's be careful what you wish for, Anna.
But it's true though. I mean, I say this to the authors that I ghost, that because in my day job I'm a ghostwriter, but it's such an abstract concept for them. What's going to happen when a book comes out? How's it going to change
Yeah,
their lives? And it does change their lives, because obviously some of the people that I ghost, I mean, they're activists and they're campaigners, and they're working to sort of share a message about things they believe in. So yeah, I know what you mean, but I mean,
yeah.
your book did so well. I mean, I just read reviews everywhere. There were great reviews, and I think the reason that it did so well was this mix of what you witnessed working in that industry and your own story, and kind of traversing the two. And I think that that's how you connect to people. This is when I'm ghosting, that's how you connect, by sharing a piece of yourself. And it actually focuses their attention on the other things that you're then trying to say about the characters in the industry, and those stories that are
Right.
quite grim. I mean, quite gritty stuff that you were dealing with.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of chaos
But
in
then there is in that industry. I mean,
that.
there just is. And what I found interesting as well is how it's kind of this, they feed each other, and it seems to be what the audience wants. They want to have this fantasy of the rock star who indulges in the sex and drugs and rock and roll, and somehow they get away with that. And there's also this thing about male creators, that they're allowed to be chaotic. I wondered if you, with female musicians, had was there any difference? I mean, were they enjoying the excesses in the same way?
Well, it is undoubtedly a very male book. There is
Mm,
there is a section of a chapter that deals with female experiences that I had a right to tell that story, and
mm,
those stories, they were very close to hand. I do say in the book, Anna, that there is a book to be written about the female experience, but I don't think it's my story
mm,
to tell.
mm,
I mean, for very selfish reasons, that there's nothing worse than the charge of mansplaining. But also, and I don't think that this is wholly my fault. I have probably interviewed dozens of female musicians, but only probably in the low dozens. And I've interviewed hundreds of male
mm,
musicians.
mm,
Uh, and I overwhelmingly, I am assigned a job. I don't,
mm,
come to them and ask. And a number of the female musicians I have asked to interview. So that imbalance is more,
yeah.
is structural.
Mm,
And I'm not suggesting that I am not part of that patriarchal structure, because clearly I am. But at the same time, my room for maneuver to kind of
mm,
subvert that, doubtless I could have done better, Anna. Um, so I honestly don't know. I think
mm,
I think that, I mean, back in the 60s, Janis Joplin was as much of a hellraiser as Jim Morrison was. So
mm,
you obviously have people who are attracted to the industry, who were hardwired, or anyway, were outlier personalities that were hardwired anyway to sort of go into that field, uh, because it just does.
Yeah.
It just does coordinate to chime with certain kinds of people. What happens now is that the working conditions are so grueling because recorded music pays so little that the
Yeah.
live work and touring is the means by which you earn a living. If we assume that the female mind is less prone to chaos than the male mind, and I'm not qualified to evaluate that, even the strongest and most stable minds, whether male or female, will be placed under, in so many instances, terrible strain that will exhibit itself in dysfunctional and destructive behavior. Then you factor into that, I am ashamed to say that the widespread misogyny and sexual trespass that I write about in that little section in my book, because I wanted to acknowledge that I wasn't blind to the fact that, there's 50% of the human race. I'm not representing an entire 50% of the human race, because because I've never acted inappropriately at a concert, or in a professional situation. I guess I used to think that was good enough, and I didn't consider it further than that. And it's not really good enough. But it came as a profound shock to me when a friend of mine who started a support group for people that for females that had negative experiences of varying degrees of seriousness. Perhaps seriousness isn't the right word. She discovered that every female she knew as a concert goer had an inappropriate, ranging from an inappropriate comment to at its furthest extreme, a rape. And that I just didn't know that. And
Yeah.
it's not acceptable that I didn't know that, to be honest. So there's a story to be told there, but I don't think it's my story.
No, I can see why. But well, shall we move on to
Yeah,
your
let's.
selection? And why don't we start with a female?
Yeah,
Because
let's.
so you have Viv Albertine as one of your picks. Close, music, boys. I've read her second book.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to think this morning of the name of it, and I can't remember. I absolutely loved it. Can you remember it?
No, is it the one about her?
About her life story, really.
Right. No, I
Uh,
can't.
and I absolutely loved it. To Throw Away Unopened. It's
There
new.
you go.
But tell us about this book. Why did you pick this one?
Well, I went to, so my book, we share a publisher, Viv and which is Faber and Faber. And each summer they have a garden party. And I went this summer to the garden party. And later that evening, it's in an outdoor square in Bloomsbury, just near the British Museum, for anyone that knows that area. And it is like a whole different world of literary high rollers and me. And later that evening, I was going to go and see Elvis Costello. So it was a great night for me because I love Elvis Costello. And my editor, who's a guy called Angus Cargill, was stood with a group of people, and I saw him, and one of the group of people was the Nobel Prize winning author Kazuo Ishiguro.
Oh wow!
And Angus said to me, "Oh, I'll introduce you, Ish." They call him.
Ish. We all know him as Ish. Our friend Ish.
I'll introduce you to Ish.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh wow, cool. And in the meantime, I got talking to this lady, and I thought, I know you. And it was Viv Albertine, and I was so struck that I was talking to Viv Albertine that I completely forgot
You forgot about Ish.
About being introduced to Ish and then toodled off to the concert,
Oh no!
having foregone the chance to meet a Nobel
What a
Prize
star-studded
winning organ.
evening from Viv Albertine and Ish to Elvis
Yeah,
Costello.
I know. And it was actually my wife. I got married in December, and my wife and I went on honeymoon um, to Barbados. Don't hate us.
I love Barbados.
And she read it on holiday, and slightly further to what we were just talking about in the last moment, Anna. Um, the punk story. So sorry for anyone that doesn't know. Viv Albertine was a guitarist in a band called the Slits, and when I met her at the Faber party, you do that. Oh, hi. She said, oh, what do you do? I said, I've written a book, and she said, oh, what's it about? And she said, oh, it's about how. I said, it's about how the music industry drives people mad. And she went, yeah, because it does, and that's sort of been the response of everyone. No one says, well, what do you mean it does?
Yeah.
Everyone just goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I've written a book about how the sun comes up in the morning. Everybody's like, yeah, everybody knows it does. And it's just a really fabulous female. I mean, it's about more than her time in the Slits. It's about her life, but it's such a frank, actually piercingly frank, book about her life and her time as a member of a really important, vital punk group. Whose story I don't think quite gets the attention that it deserves, and she tells it really well, and she doesn't blink. And I found it a riveting but also a challenging read, because she is braver as an author than I am as a reader. So
okay. Wow. Okay, lovely. Have you also, I must ask you, have you seen Exhibition, the film that she starred in?
No, I haven't.
It's a Joanna Hogg film, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love. Oh, yeah, we've had this discussion about Joanna Hogg.
About the souvenir.
Yeah. So she's one of my favourites, and she directed her in a film called Exhibition, which you now must watch.
Okay,
brilliant.
I'll make a mental note of that.
Yeah, and they're mates, and that's why she asked her to do it, because Joanna Hogg just kind of asked her mates, not even actors. Yeah, and she has the main role. She's brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
well, I didn't even recognize her first at the party. It was embarrassing. Really embarrassing.
So why don't you show the next one that you've got there?
So this is not the edition that will be in Anna's shop. This is
I have that one, which is because they're both Faber. It's
yeah. Actually, I haven't deliberately picked Faber books. I'm not trying to do my. I mean, Faber got enough money anyway, so they don't need me punting their books. It just so happens, and this is a book by a music journalist. I want to say a famous music journalist, but for people sort of my age, he's older than I am. This is sort of the point where music journalists were powerful and quote unquote famous. Perhaps almost famous might be a better. And they were able to bestow validity on an artist simply by deigning to write about them. Now, I'm not sure that that's the fact that no longer happens anymore for the most part. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a bad thing. But he is certainly during this period, the music journalist that I don't think I ever wanted to be I always wanted to be a music journalist. I don't think I wanted to be a certain music. I didn't think I want to be like Nick Kent. But as me, who wanted to be a music journalist from when I was 14, the frankness and skill with which he wrote, and this is simply a collection of his articles up until about the early 90s, early to mid 90s, actually. And I'm just opening the contents page here. It includes pieces and interviews with Brian Wilson, Jerry Lee Lewis, The Stones, Elvis Costello, Shane MacGowan. There's a really, really striking piece about Sid Vicious, Kurt Cobain, Prince. Again, very male. I'm looking at it. Miles Davis. Is there a female? No, it's 100% male. Anna, you're making me realise my privilege here. Now I'm talking to a female. No, 100% male. So, but as
but then, like you said, he was often, perhaps he was just often commissioned to interview the guys, and so
yeah, he doesn't appear to have interviewed any females at all, or certainly
well, not that have appeared in this book anyway.
No,
but,
no. His own life was, and he wrote for the NME, which is interesting in itself because I never really liked the NME, so that's unusual. He was in a relationship with Chrissie Hynde from the Pretenders.
Okay.
He chronicled punk. These selections are quite punky that I've picked.
Right, yeah.
That's subconscious. That's before my time as well. So he was sort of almost as famous as the bands.
Okay.
Which is weird because that's just unimaginable.
Yeah.
He became addicted to heroin.
I'm guessing.
Well, maybe. And I never became addicted to heroin, but sort of his life and the ruination of his life, I guess I did that too. So and that I hadn't, but it's just he just brings music and musicians alive on the page.
Wow.
And I think it's aged very well. I think his writing is aged very well, and I find it. I mean, I bought this first in the 1990s. It was published, and I find myself returning to it frequently, specifically to reread articles that I can actually remember perfectly well in my head anyway, just for the pleasure of reading.
Wow, but that is some endorsement. Also, has your this has got a foreword by Iggy Pop in this edition.
Let's have a look, shall we? Yeah, it does. Yeah,
okay.
Forward by Iggy Pop.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing. Thank you.
That's all right.
So the other one I have here is Everybody Loves Our Town. So tell us about this one.
Well, I've picked this for technical reasons.
Go on.
That's also Faber, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, but I mean they publish musicians.
I know, but it wasn't. In fact, originally there was a book on it that wasn't Faber that we couldn't.
To be fair to you, you gave me a selection, and I picked them, so I'm as much to blame here. And your final one isn't Faber, but yeah.
Okay, good. So this is Everybody Loves Our Town, and I've picked this for technical reasons, which is. This is the one selection of the four that I've chosen, Anna, that's actually not a written book. It's what's known in the trade as an oral history.
Okay.
And it's an oral history of the Seattle music scene from during the period of what was known as grunge. So the late 80s, if memory serves, probably to the point that Kurt Cobain from Nirvana committed suicide or died by suicide, which was in April 1994. And just the chaos and excitement and wonderful music and drug addiction of a gold rush, a musical gold rush that happened to what was at the time, for anyone that doesn't know, Seattle's really up in it's the top northwest corner of the United States, the most northernmost, westernmost state, Washington State, and it's right up near Canada. So it's removed.
Yeah.
It's out of the way. I guess Newcastle would be the nearest
not as glamorous,
the
really.
closest example. But I've been a few times. It's rainy up there, and it's a lovely city. But at the time that grunge happened, it was sort of a second tier
Mm-hmm.
American city. I think I'm fair in saying that. You know, maybe like Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it's the epicenter of rock and roll. You might hear my cat meowing there. He does this on every podcast. Um, and so it's an oral history, which means that the author, a writer by the name of Mark Yarm,
Yeah.
he just interviewed everyone that he could get hold of, which is pretty much everyone that is relevant.
Mm.
And told the story in their words. None of his words, it's just them speaking. Sometimes the stories conflict and contradict, and he's kept those contradictions in.
Okay, nice.
Really, and I just loved it. There are some great oral histories. Please Kill Me about New York punk is a really good one. The Motley Crue book, The Dirt, that's also an oral history. But this is my favorite. He just brings the excitement and the elevation of the scene, and then inevitably its downfall when it became oppressively dark. Just let me open the door here. Joe Wagon, you always do this, don't you? And Andy has a cat flap.
Oh, mine are exactly the same. Exactly.
It's just too lazy.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really, really enjoyable and skillfully put together book, because
Mm-hmm.
he has to steer that story using entirely other people's words.
I love the fact that you said that there are these contradictions and he kept them, because that's
Yeah,
memory for you, isn't it, as well?
very much. Someone said, "Oh yeah, so and so wasn't at that show," and then the next person, the so and so would say, "Oh yeah, I was at the show." And it's the idea that memory is malleable and
And
legible.
especially in that world when there's, a lot of substances going around, you can understand that, the memory might not be tip top.
No, so that's my choice.
And so,
Everyone loves our town, and it's strange. Sorry, just very quickly, Anna, because I was a very young man when all this happened, but I can. It happened in my lifetime, and during a period when I was conscious of what was going on musically. I just started as a music journalist. Shortly after Nirvana broke and Pearl Jam broke and all of these bands. But for a growing constituency of readers, this is history, you know, and it is I think very worth reading if you're interested in
I
that.
feel like it's going to be quite nostalgic for me, because at that time I had sort of 94, I had a boyfriend who looked just like Kurt Cobain, and
Nice.
obviously that was just perfect for that time.
Yeah,
and he was a kind of into poetry and quite depressed, and I was really on point at that time.
Very much, very on brand.
Okay, and then the final one, neither of us have got to hand, but it's Lonely Boy. Steve Jones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Steve Jones who's the guitarist, or was the guitarist in the Sex Pistols, and this is quite timely for a couple of reasons, Anna. Lonely Boy was the source material for the Danny Boyle series Pistol, which broadcast this year, which emerged this year. And also at the time that we speak, 3 days ago, it was the 45th anniversary of the release of the first Sex Pistols album. And I think that the book came out, and I don't remember it making a great impact. It took me a little while to read it, because I think when you think of the Sex Pistols, at least as a voice, quote unquote a voice, you think of John Lydon, you think of Johnny Rotten, the same. The rest of the Pistols make music, but he articulates what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was quite refreshing to read it from a different perspective.
Mm.
And Steve Jones, the thing about the Pistols is aside from the incredible music, it's an entirely unhappy story.
Mm.
The band broke up 78 days after their debut album was released. It imploded it vaporized into a cloud of acrimony and embezzlement and addiction and actually death.
Mm.
And I think the book, I don't know if Steve Jones intended it as such, because the book continues long past the Pistols breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading it, I thought, oh gosh, I don't really care about the rest of this stuff. Or I thought I did. And now he has his life back on track now, Steve Jones. He has a cool little radio program in Los Angeles where he lives called Jones's Jukebox, and everybody goes on it. And he seems a very contented man. But until he righted the ship, which took decades to write it,
Yeah.
to recalibrate to a degree, there was just drift and drug addiction, and what seems to me kind of almost like a post-traumatic stress disorder, being in the most infamous and most volatile band, certainly of my lifetime, surely, a guitar band at least. And it's strange. One of the things that I write, I consider in my book is not just the death and the destruction and the chaos and the addiction of rock and roll, but what it is like to have tasted a little bit of success for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Not as much as the Pistols, but being on a tour bus, and playing to a couple of thousand people a night for a couple of years. And then it sort of fades away as it does.
Or then get re-entering into normal life. I think it's very difficult.
And
very boring.
And yeah, in my experience, it affects everybody in some way. It brands everyone in some way. So the Pistol stuff is great in the book's called Lonely Boy, but just as fascinating and compelling is what happens when the cheering stops.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
What do you do then? What's left? You're 20. He would have been early to mid-20s.
Wow.
And then what? Professional footballers last longer than that. Then what?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Addition to the list, really.
Yeah.
Wow, that's been so interesting.
There we go.
Oh God, it's so fascinating hearing, what all of these authors that I've asked to talk, but it just makes me want to like down tools and read all these books straight away. So
sack it all off and just never read them down.
You've done the job.
You don't have anything to do before the bookshop opens.
No, not at all. No. Okay, Ian. Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thanks. So I'm just so grateful that you accepted the invitation. So yes, I will put these books onto the website, and there will be Substack, and you'll be able to watch this video. You probably watched it already to be able to hear me say that. So that's not so. But thanks, Ian. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Okay, and good luck with the bookshop, and I hope all of your customers like it.
Thank you.